Within 72 hours, the U.S. would engage in war with Russia. Security guarantees for Ukraine are presented in the event of a renewed Russian invasion. We will talk about this with political analyst, European Leadership Network UK member Alexandra Filippenko. Alexandra, glad to see you and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Alexandra, using the coldest days of winter to terrorize civilians is more important for Russia than pursuing diplomacy. Once again, there was a targeted strike by Russia, specifically on energy infrastructure. The Russians employed a significant number of ballistic missiles, as we see, in combination with other rockets, more than 70 and 450 strike drones. Neither the anticipated diplomatic efforts in Abu Dhabi this week nor Russia's promises to the United States prevented it from continuing its campaign of terror against ordinary people during the harshest winter. What signals did these renewed attacks send to the U.S. administration, and what is your reaction?
Well, I think that the main goal for the Kremlin, the main goal for Putin is to say, well, we are doing what you ask, but in a limited way. Because as we've heard from President Trump, this period of not attacking Ukrainian infrastructure, Ukrainian energy infrastructure should have lasted for a week, or at least for a week. And President Trump, according to President Trump's plan, the talks between the Ukrainian side and the Russian side were supposed to be happening at the backdrop of not attacking Ukrainian infrastructure, of Russia not attacking Ukrainian infrastructure. Because, of course, we understand that when talks are happening, there are many issues that need to be discussed. There are many problems. There are many difficulties, of course, for discussion. But one of the things that's also important, apart from the just merely diplomatic standpoint or a military standpoint, it's the psychological standpoint. Now, of course, when Russia is attacking Ukrainian cities, when Russia is attacking the energy grid, it is very difficult to, let's say, set aside the psychological part of it all, the psychological part of Ukrainians being free, just freezing in their own homes, and Ukrainians not having water, not having energy, not having heat, not having a possibility to actually sleep in their own beds because they have to go to subway to sleep in order not to be attacked in their own homes. And at this backdrop, it is very difficult to actually negotiate. But what Putin did, he said, okay, we will follow the ideas of President Trump. We will follow what President Trump asks us to do, but we will limit it to 3 days and we will postpone the negotiation. So the negotiation and the meeting will happen at the backdrop of Russia attacking Ukrainian energy grid, attacking Ukrainian cities, attacking Ukrainian civilians. So it would be more difficult for the Ukrainian side to actually continue the negotiation. So I think it was important for the Kremlin to, on the one hand, state that, of course, they are following at President Trump's footsteps. They are following what President Trump asks them to do. They are doing it, but in a limited way. And would President Trump be able to come back to discussing the same thing? He would look weak. He would look weak in the eyes of the Americans, because President Trump asked Putin many times to stop attacking Ukrainian civilians, to stop attacking Ukrainian cities. And Putin is still attacking Ukrainian civilians, still attacking Ukrainian cities. So now Trump asked not to attack Ukrainian power grid, not to attack Ukrainian infrastructure. And Putin said, okay, we will do that just for 3 days. If Trump asks to do it again, this would tell the American people, the Americans, the electorate of the Republican Party that Putin is not actually listening. Putin is not actually respecting Trump, and respect is extremely important for President Trump. President Trump has been repeating that if he was in power in 22, there wouldn't have happened a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. But Putin is not listening to Trump. Putin is on the one hand doing a little bit for Trump not to be too angry with him, but if Trump asks for a ceasefire, at least a partial ceasefire again, this would make President Trump look weak in Americans' eyes. So he would probably not do that. And this is exactly what Putin wants.
And, sources from the Financial Times published security guarantees for Ukraine. If Russia invades again, the West and the US will engage militarily in defense of Ukraine within 72 hours. Stage 1, within 24 hours of breach, diplomatic warnings will be issued and the armed forces of Ukraine will seek to halt the violation. Stage 2, if fighting continues, a coalition of the willing, including EU countries, the United Kingdom, Norway, Turkey, will be immediately activated. Stage 3, within 72 hours, in the event of escalation, a joint EU-U.S. military response will be launched with US troops involved. The UK and France are ready to deploy troops and equipment to Ukraine under the security guarantees. After ceasefire, Europe will maintain deterrence on land, at sea, and in the air with the US support. It does not sound very realistic, does it?
Well, it doesn't sound too realistic, but it's the sources of the Financial Times. We know it from the sources. So the European and US military response, and not only Europe and US, because we're also talking about Turkey, but if we include Turkey, of course, and not only the European Union, because of course we include the United Kingdom, Iceland, Norway, that's very, very important. And but this information comes from the Financial Times sources. On the one hand, usually Financial Times are known for having the best sources, but this all looks as if the Financial Times or someone from the American side needed Russia to see it, needed to see the plan, let's say, because what we've heard previously, that the 20-point peace plan was supposed to have one of the points stating that the security guarantees will be provided to Ukraine in this manner, in the manner of actually the US in the end attacking Russia or responding to Russia, coordinating its military response with the European Union and with other countries after the 72 hours of the breach of a ceasefire from the Russian side, only if the Ukrainian side agrees to giving up some of its territories, the territories that Russia is not controlling right now. And of course, we're talking about the Donbas region. But there was this idea of demilitarization of the Donbas region, of that part of Ukraine that Russia is not controlling. But in any case, it was all connected. The Donbas region was connected to security guarantees, was connected to the response of Europe and of the United States. And right now, it's very, very important to stress again and again, it's only the sources that are giving this information. But on the one hand, it looks like there is nothing said about the Donbas region. It's just the security guarantees. It's just the security guarantees in the event of a violation of future peace agreements by the American side, by the European side, by Turkey, by Iceland, by Norway, by the UK. So it seems as if this guarantee plan stipulates that the harsh response will be given within the 24 hours with additional response from the American side within 72 hours. So this is a kind of a plan that probably the European side, the American side, wants Russian side to see and to realize that Putin cannot stall forever. He cannot just wait out. What he wants to do is to wait out, drag time. He's been doing it forever. And this is the strategy. This is not even the tactics. This is the strategy of the Russian side to drag time. Let's remember what Peskov, the press secretary of Putin, said after one of the meetings with the American side, that the Americans are so rushing. They're rushing everything. They want everything to be fast. And the Russian side doesn't want anything to be fast. They don't need to be too fast, and they are dragging the time. So what we are seeing from the sources of Financial Times right now, that the Russian side is dragging the time while the Europeans, the Americans, and the Ukrainians are not dragging the time. They are moving towards some kind of an agreement. They are discussing some kind of guarantees, the warnings and the responses and how it's going to be. It's quite detailed. The plan is quite detailed. Of course, the responses, it depends on what kind of a response that would be. It all depends. And of course, we understand that in the case of a violation of a ceasefire, some possible responses can be very, very different from the Ukrainian side, from the European side, from the American side. But still, the appearance of such an agreement, the appearance of the agreement of Ukraine with its Western partners, that they have agreed to a military response to that possible Moscow's violation of a future ceasefire, is an important signal also to Moscow that you might be dragging your feet, but we are moving. We are moving for an agreement. And although, again, coming back to the fact that these are only sources of the Financial Times, we didn't see the document yet.
Dear viewers, we want to hear your thoughts. How realistic do you think these guarantees are? Share your comments and let us know your opinion regarding exerting influence on Putin by different methods. We see that President Trump announced a major agreement with India. India has agreed to halt purchases of Russian oil, redirecting supplies from the U.S. and potentially Venezuela. The U.S. will reduce mutual tariffs for India from 25% to 18%. In response, India has committed to eliminate its tariffs and non-tariff barriers on American goods. How significant is India's decision to stop buying Russian oil for the global energy balance, in your opinion?
It's quite significant in the diplomatic standpoint. From the diplomatic standpoint, from the international relations standpoint, it is significant. And Narendra Modi is commenting on his wonderful conversation with his dear friend, President Trump, in such a manner that we see some possibility of future cooperation between India and the United States in the region. We understand that Modi is commenting and talking about two large economies and the world's largest democracies working together. And he's saying that it will benefit our people and unlock immense opportunities for mutually beneficial cooperation. So this is significant in the diplomatic front for China also, because this means that the United States are not only exerting more pressure on India, they are having, let's say, more opportunities in the region, in the Indo-Pacific region. And that is an important, of course, signal for Beijing. And at the same time, this gives Donald Trump an opportunity to post, and he talked about it in Truth Social, in a post in Truth Social, an opportunity to say that he is not only giving Venezuela new financial opportunities, because we see Venezuela is right now working with Washington, and without the change of the regime, Venezuela is changing its ways and getting financial profit. President Trump is saying that he basically brings new business to Venezuela and brings new opportunities to Venezuela. And it gives President Trump an opportunity to say that he is pushing Putin and that he is actually exerting pressure on Vladimir Putin, on Russia, because the Americans are not happy with the way President Trump is approaching the war in Europe. They are not happy with the way President Trump caters to Putin. They are not happy with what is happening and how President Trump is not able to stop the war, not only in 24 hours, but in 24 days and in 24 weeks. So they are not happy about that. And this gives an opportunity diplomatically and politically to say that the pressure is immense demands right now on Russia, because President Trump loves talking about how India is the biggest buyer of Russian oil, although it's not particularly realistic, because in a few months of 2025, yes, it is true, India was the biggest buyer of Russian oil, although all the other months, for 2 months, it was India, and for other 10 months, it was China. So there is no pressure on China right now, but the pressure on India. And also, we must understand that India cannot fully switch to Venezuelan oil right now. It's gonna take some time. So right now, it won't be an immediate pressure on Russia's economy. So economically, it is not that much of a pressure. Politically, it's a great opportunity for President Trump, and diplomatically, it's a big signal for Moscow and Beijing, both to realize that President Trump is working with India, is working with Narendra Modi, and President Trump and Washington in general is active in the region. So it is significant, but more diplomatically and politically than economically.
What about Russian gas? Because the European Union increased its imports of Russian gas in January 2026. According to Reuters, supplies via the Turkish stream rose by 10.3% compared to January of last year, reaching 55.8 million cubic meters per day. Overall, the EU received 1.73 billion cubic meters of gas from Russia during the month, 160 million more than a year ago. To what extent does this increase in imports threaten the EU's energy diversification efforts and its plans to reduce dependence on Russian energy resources?
The European Union is still moving towards independence, and the European Union is still strong in moving towards its independence. But although when there are some emergency needs, the European Union is still turning to Russia for those emergency needs. We must say that many politicians, including politicians, first of all, of the Baltic states, have been repeatedly saying that the European Union should be less dependent on Russian gas and on Russian oil and in general on Russian resources since 2014, since the beginning of the invasion of Ukraine. And some were talking about it since 2008, since the invasion of Russia to Georgia and annexation of Georgia's territory. So we understand that politically it's very difficult to make those decisions. And Europe was quite late. I mean, the European Union was quite late in actually acting on those warnings of politicians from the Baltic states and from Ukraine and from many other countries that were heard all over Europe actively since 2014 and even before that. So politically, European politicians did not move fast enough, but they started moving towards energy independence from Russia after 2022. They cannot do it momentarily. They cannot do it really fast, and they are still dependent, although the diversification is already irreversible. We understand for emergency needs, for day-to-day needs, if they need it right now for a short period of time, yes, of course, the European Union can buy more gas, can buy Russian resources, but it's rather not a situation that will, in a way, become normal. It's rather an abnormal situation due to some emergency needs of the European Union, while the diversification is basically coming to its final stage. And in 2027, we must see a total independence of the European Union from Russian sources, although, of course, we understand that even in the future, even in 2028, even in 2029, sometimes for emergency needs, the European Union might buy something from Russia. This is not totally forbidden for emergency needs, but the purchases will not be normalized, that is for sure.
Alexandra, and in conclusion, very interesting a topic about Epstein. Epstein may have had connections with Putin and could have been working in the interest of Russian intelligence, the Daily Mail reports, citing sources in the security services. According to the publication among the thousands of Epstein files, more than 1,000 documents mention the Russian dictator Putin, and another 9,629 refer to Moscow. The financier himself is being considered as a potential participant in the world's largest sexual honey trap operation aimed at collecting compromising material for the KGB. What do you think about this and about Trump here?
Of course, we learn more and more about Epstein's connections with Russia, although I would not follow Daily Mail fully into that rabbit hole because it's quite dangerous. And Daily Mail is a bit of, I think it's a bit of an exaggeration because what I think we're all getting from Epstein files, that yes, he was gathering information. Epstein was gathering information, but only for himself. He was gathering information to sell it. He was buying information, most probably. In his emails, if you read all those emails that he writes to different people, he lies all the time. He's lying to one group of people about the other group of people, then he lies to that other group of people, the first ones. And it is crazy what we see in those Epstein files. If you go to justice.gov site where all the Epstein files are presented, you can look for them. And just for fun, it's also possible to Google there, to search there such names as, for example, Vladimir Lenin. Vladimir Lenin is in Epstein files, and Stalin is in Epstein files, just because those Epstein files are message chains, are email chains, are some discussions, and also even some articles and books that were sent by some people to Epstein, because it's everything, absolutely everything that the Justice Department found in his emails and in his phones. And there are crazy discussions and some weird discussions that will, of course, fuel some more conspiracy theories, including about Russia, including about Ukraine, including about the United States, including about some parallel governments, let's say. And it's very difficult as of now, it's very difficult to say if there was a real connection of Epstein to KGB in the way we think it might be, in the way to hurt Donald Trump, because it looks as if Epstein was gathering information about everyone around him in order to blackmail people. This is how it looks to me personally. This is how it looks. In order to blackmail people, in order to control people, in order to have enough information on everyone to make everyone afraid of Jeffrey Epstein and never ever try to investigate Jeffrey Epstein. But he didn't manage to finish all that business. Let's say he didn't manage to finish gathering all the information about everyone, and we understand that, we know how it all ended in 2019 when he was found dead in his prison cell. And of course, all the conspiracy theories will thrive on those Epstein files, but I wouldn't go down that rabbit hole of thinking that Epstein either controlled Putin's finances somehow or worked for the KGB, because I think the KGB tried to use Epstein for sure. FSB tried to use Epstein for sure, and the Kremlin tried to use Epstein for sure, but I'm equally sure that Putin and his cronies and his gang would have never trusted Jeffrey Epstein, would have never trusted an American, and only used him. I do not think that actually Jeffrey Epstein could work for FSB.